Sri Behra is somebody who does not really need any introduction to this audience, but yet he is the founding member of the National Investigation Agency, which has played a critical role in high-profile counterterrorism operations and investigations. And he's served the state in so many various capacities, and most notably, and the last and the most senior capacity of Director General of Police, DGP, as the state police chief of Kerala. So very senior man, a wealth of experiences to speak from. We are so proud to have you here. And as the first plenary speaker in the session, I'd like to welcome Sri Loknath Behra, IPS.
So very distinguished persons on the dais, and Licypriya is the most important person I could say, because at her very young age, she has opened a chapter in her mind to protect this planet. That's a great thing. And of course, Shiekha is an inspiring person, because her contribution to the environmental and earth science is immense. And I'm sure that the students who are attending this will be immensely benefited. And well, sometimes I wonder that I have already completed 40 years in public service. Anyway, I have become old then. But question here is, when we are talking about sustainability, it's a very, very difficult word. In the sense, sustainability means something to me which will be different for our Pro-Vice Chancellor ma'am, maybe different from Madhu sir, maybe different for Lucy, but the way you do. But I will tell you very simple. 2 weeks back, I attended an international conference in Washington, and they said a very, very interesting definition. Somebody said, he said, sustainability is equal to survival. I thought it is the best definition. What is survival today and tomorrow is sustainability. So whether you have social sustainability or environmental sustainability or economic sustainability, transport sustainability, you take anything. So it is for the a better living in the planet, because if we do not think so many things together, our actually planet will not be fit to live. Say, Licypriya will be finding it extremely difficult to see, to stay in this planet. There was a very beautiful documentary I saw. It's a 1-minute documentary which got the international award from the UN. Sometime back I saw that a family actually staying in, after say 20 years, the mother actually tells the son to go to the school, and the boy says that my actually artificially intelligent mask has not arrived so far, so I can't go to the school. So without that, he can't go to the school, because these kind of things are already there. So what I am actually trying to say is that we have to think now. Everything depends on us, and everything is actually we have to do it. And you say that everything Sarkar will do it, it will not correct. Or everything the academicians will do, it will not correct. It is actually starts from the house itself. So there are many researches, many of the conclusions have already been drawn to say that how to live, how the sustainability in everything can be brought in. But how much of actually thing we are actually following? As I was telling in the morning, ma'am, actually Pro-Vice Chancellor ma'am and those we were discussing, is that when the Brahmapuram fire took place, what did we do? Including me, including you, we ran away. So we, then after that is gone, we forgot. So kind of things which we can do to keep this planet safe is what you are talking about sustainability. Shiekha will talk about the earth science, how it has the environmental things which we are doing or we are actually querying or something, how it has brought in non-sustainability to the planet. But I am actually now, because I am now working with the metro and the water metro, so sometimes I feel that had I not probably worked in this after so many years working in the police, I would not have probably learned the things which I have learned now. I am very cautious these days even to throw a wrapper, and I keep it in the pocket to put it in my, when I come back home. So these kind of things can be taught to the children at home. So there are certain things which have to follow. The way you teach your child how to use a toothbrush, similarly probably you have to teach that from the day one, that these are the don'ts you have to do. You have to remember that. Anyway, as far as metro and water metro and other things are concerned, I will tell you one thing. This metro is a very sustainable transport method, instrument. You can say it runs on electricity. It doesn't emit carbon dioxide. And it has so many advantages. It is very good. And then we introduced the water metro, one and unique in the country. And now we are trying to, actually the government of India has now asked us to do it in 18 other places, in 18 other cities, all over this country, because it is sustainable. It doesn't actually pollute anything. It actually is very smooth. It is very steady. It is actually liked by people the way it moves. And now we will be having high-speed internet also inside the boats. So you can work there. All kind of things are being put across. And it is, the most important thing is that you buy one ticket in the metro, you can travel in that ticket in the water metro also. These are interchangeable, interoperable tickets. Now we have brought in, you see now they are feeder bus. You might be seeing for the last 6-7 days, this is all front page news, because it has been liked by the people so much that it is all the time full. And now we are going to introduce it more and more. You will be also, Jain University students also will be beneficiary, because we are actually going to start from day after tomorrow a thing which will coming to this side also from the water metro station. So what is happening is that all these things are putting a small kind of effort from a transport company to bring sustainability to the city. That is one part. There are so many other parts which other people will speak. I will show you a very quick presentation and then I will end by saying something. Just have the video, that video.
Kochi Water Metro. Connecting lives, connecting miles. The climate-friendly initiative of an integrated water transport system called Water Metro, conceived by the Government of Kerala, perfectly aligns with Honorable Prime Minister's vision of Atmanirbhar Bharat to serve Kochi city with 78 battery-powered hybrid electric boats. The unique Water Metro project will ride the waves of sustainable public transport over 76 route kilometers, connecting 38 state-of-art Water Metro terminals around Kochi to the city centre. It would be a major boost to trade, business and mobility of the islanders and improve their livelihood. Expecting a daily ridership of 34,000 passengers in the initial phase, the 747 crore project, with the financial assistance of 85 million euros from German financial agency KfW, Water Metro will decongest the roads and reduce the carbon footprint of the city. The aluminium catamaran, that is twin hull boats, designed and made in Kochi by the Cochin shipyard, has a super efficient hull that will not impact the aquatic flora and fauna while moving through the backwaters like a swan. The state-of-the-art air-conditioned boats operating under a single command and control will be the largest fleet of electric boats anywhere in the world, saving an estimated 44,000 metric tons of carbon emissions per annum when completed. Equipped with LTO batteries that are the safest of batteries commercially available, superchargers that charge the boats in just 15 minutes, and the latest of navigational and communication equipment, Water Metro boats prove that India can lead the world in technological solutions and innovations. The concrete floating pontoons makes the Water Metro disabled-friendly that enable persons with motor disability to board the boats on their own. Working in the same manner like the Metro Rail, Water Metro can be replicated in other cities across the country that have navigable water bodies, fulfilling our commitment to a sustainable future for mankind. Water Metro. Think blue, go green.
So now it is the Water Metro. I just put it in a video so that I don't have to speak much. See, what is happening is that it actually, these boats carry 100 passengers. And these particular 100 passengers, you cannot take 101 because the gates will not open. There is a passenger counting system which is automated so that you cannot take overloads. And it has actually a lot of advantages because the aluminum, it is made in aluminum, not like fiber, and it doesn't actually create any problem for the flora and fauna of these backwaters. It doesn't actually destroy the banks. It has a pontoons, they are not made from iron, it is made from concrete, so it is non-polluting again for, compared to the iron and the metal ones. So what is happening is that all these things have been thought of in a very actually a lot of thinking process has gone to build this system. A complete ecosystem has been built to bring more sustainability to the transport. Again, I said that this can be actually replicated anywhere in the country where there is water transport. So we are now going to 18 places, including Gujarat to Kashmir to Uttar Pradesh to Bengal, etc. So to introduce that. Now, again, this particular, it is all technology, and this particular ticketing and all these things is cashless. You can, if you want to pay cash, we are also ready. If you don't pay the cash also, there are digital payments which you can do remotely by in your mobile phone itself. So all these things have been already introduced. So and by in 1.5 years, we have actually estimated 2 million people to travel. We have now got to 3.5 million. It is like a new movie being released on the first day. Every day there will be so much of crowd. It is all happening. So, and it has a lot of actually tourists, whoever comes to Kochi. Actually, I told Lucy also to actually travel with her mom in the Water Metro. It will be good to see that how things we can do it in India. So now coming to your university, because I actually, to some extent, I am actually involved in planning of this particular summit when Tom and other people came and met me. So this particular future in terms of technology or in terms of sustainability, you have to think from the beginning. Now it is not too late. If you think now and innovate and live a life according to the protocols which have been established, it will be good. So I don't want to take much time about this. I'll show you a small video at the end, which is a little beautifully done, how what the Water Metro can do to the people, how beautifully it has brought in a lot of changes. I was telling Madam Pro Vice Chancellor that look, those people, we have employed large number of women in the Water Metro. And those people are, who are actually from lower actually strata of the society and below poverty line, they say that by working in Water Metro or even traveling in Water Metro, I have graduated from Chechi to Madam. People call me Madam. Well, the women empowerment is one of the parts of this particular project. I must say I am very happy that we could employ a lot of women. Actually, more than 50% of people working there are women. So it is actually a great thing. And though we have any gender bias or anything, so we wanted to say that safety, security and other things also is part of your sustainability part, that is social sustainability, etc. So my request to the students and the faculty here, as I teach them, you are going to be the change makers. Without you getting involved, whatever I say or whatever other people say will not work. It will, a lot of things have already been said, but now it is better to act. So we are showing the last video, or it is somewhere, that is a 1-minute video, or is there? Okay, right. Okay, thank you very much for actually listening to me, because Dr. Shiekha will be there, Lucy will be there, other people, professors are all there. They will be also speaking to you on various aspects. I only covered a very small aspect called on the transport. Thank you very much.
Greetings from Kochi, Kerala, located at the southwest tip of India with the Arabian Sea kissing its entire west coast. If you ever choose to make Kochi one of your travel destinations, you are geared for an exhilarating and profound travel experience. Both Metro Rail Network and the Kochi Water Metro are envisioned for sustainable mobility, focusing on your utmost convenience, comfort, and safety. Kochi Water Metro is featuring a multitude of ultra-modern embedded technology and innovations. To begin with, it is supported by a passenger control system, user-friendly embarking and disembarking passages for the physically challenged. Our boats are genuinely quiet with a unique vibration-free propulsion, causing only minimum disturbance to the aquatic life and small boats traveling nearby. Spacious, fully air-conditioned cabins that can accommodate 100 people per boat. Huge windows to make sure that you don't miss out on the numerous sights and activities outside that can keep giving you thrills. Come, be our guest to experience the best of Kochi in the best possible way.
Kerala is being truly futuristic in how we travel, and a special round of applause for that point that he has employed more than 50% women in his workforce. That's true empowerment in action. It's not hollow words. Students, let's hear it loud for Kochi Water Metro and KMRL. And what a brilliant thought to begin this discussion with. Sustainability is equal to survival. I don't think there could have been any better context setting for this day of discussions ahead. And our next plenary speaker is a scientist who's been supporting the management and coordination of key programs under India's Atmosphere and Climate Research Initiative. And she has played a pivotal role. She is continuing to play a pivotal role in numerical weather prediction, that is NWP, modeling projects, and also procurement of advanced supporting infrastructure. She's also actively involved in fostering international collaborations, which is critical for India remaining at the forefront of the global climate and weather modeling research. A very important person here, like I mentioned earlier, a very inspiring figure for all of our students. Presenting to you, Dr. Shiekha Elizabeth John. Welcome, ma'am.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, students, dignitaries on the dais, Behra sir, Licypriya. I was so happy to see her in the morning. I had seen her TED Talks, and yeah, she inspires us. She inspires my son, who's 8 years old, who doesn't know Behra sir. I was telling him in the morning that when I was a graduate student, I used to listen to him, how he would keep Kerala in line. So what an incredible personality. It is wonderful to be here. This is my home state. I live in Delhi now, and I work for the Ministry of Earth Sciences. I don't do all of what our host explained, but I am involved in coordinating Government of India's atmospheric ambitions in terms of weather and climate forecasting. the Ministry of Earth Sciences is in the process of acquiring the biggest high-performance computing ever in the country, which is meant to support our models, both seasonal and climatic models. But having said that, I am not a climate scientist. Everything that all the data that I quote today, and I will try not to quote a lot, and all insights on climate change that I refer today is from the assessment report, the 6th assessment report of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. It is, as you all know, and I hope all of you, irrespective of your batches, your subjects, have read up on what we are facing in the future. We cannot talk about green pathways or any kind of future if you do not address climate change. So the first thing that I would highlight from the AR6, and I have to mention here that the Indian Institute of Tropical Meteorology under the Ministry of Earth Sciences developed its first indigenous ESM, the Earth System Model, which contributed to the CMIP-6, the Coupled Model Intercomparison Project. This was the first contribution to the AR6 from South Asia, and this establishes India's climate modeling capacity. We are doing everything in terms of contributing to knowing where we stand right now and where we will stand by the end of the 21st century. Having said that, the first thing that I want to highlight, this is all out there for you to refer to, is that AR6 is very clear on one aspect. The warming that we are seeing right now, so far in the last decade, we're talking about 2010 to 2019, we see 1.1 degree warming. And we have global scientific consensus on this. And this cannot be, this is unprecedented in the last century. In a multi-centurial time scale also, if you look at it, it is unprecedented. And we cannot explain this trend with just natural forcings. And science students here would know when I say natural forcings, I mean volcanic eruptions, natural aerosols, radiance balancing. All of this cannot explain this trend. So we are 100% certain that human interventions and per se GHGs are very much responsible for this. One of the studies quote that if you only put in a well-mixed GSG projection into the model, we get a 1.5 degree warming in the last decade. But we have also seen a cooling of around -4 degrees, and which is why we now stand at 1.1 degrees. And if you look at the impact of this warming, what we have seen so far, this is where we stand right now. And if you look at the impact, we know this is a very global problem, right? It does not see boundaries. It's very transnational. Having said that it is global, the impact can be very local and it can be very different. Often, if you would listen to climate interactions, we have the UN Secretary General often quoting that the least responsible countries to the problem are often the most vulnerable. They'll be hit the most. So it's not a fair problem. The world will face it, everybody will face it, but it's not fair. We do not have a hold on who gets hit most, but there is consensus that the weaker, the most vulnerable, the island nations, India and China, just because of the demographic depth of these countries, the coastal line involved, the implications will be catastrophic. So that is one thing I wanted to highlight. And if you look at the future projection, AR6 is very clear on one thing, that no matter what scenario you put into the model, so there are socioeconomic pathways that has been considered, different pathways of emission. So if you have a low emission pathway, it is, if you have a range of 1 to 5, you consider 1 as a low emission pathway and 5 as a very high emission pathway, where we are right now. So even if we hit the 1, even if all our climate dialogues work out, every single signatory of Paris works on our commitments, which is not happening. It has been a tremendous failure. But if that happens, we are still looking at 1.5 degrees in the next 20 years. And I want to just mention the number might seem simple, but when I say 1.5, what's very, very disturbing is that a 1 degree increase is enough for the atmosphere to have a capacity of 7% more of water vapor holding capacity. So the temperature increases, water vapor holding capacity increases. And that will increase your precipitation. So per 1 degree, it is 7% increase, which is very, very high. And the simultaneous increase in precipitation would be around 3%. What is more disturbing is that the variability of these extremes, precipitation extremes from wet to dry spells, are going to be very drastic. For example, if you look at the mid-equatorial region, the Southwest Australia, the Mediterranean region, which are already precipitation deficit, these regions will suffer in terms of reduced precipitation. Why? Because when the temperature goes up, the atmospheric evaporative demand, the demand of evaporation of the atmosphere increases, and this will keep absorbing soil moisture. We have droughts. On the other hand, the equatorial regions, the tropics, will face very high wet spells, extreme rainfalls. There can be anomalies, there can be a few years of differences here and there. We're talking about decadal averages, a half a century average, but generally this is what the trend we will see with a 1 point. And for the next 20 years, we are pretty certain in all scenarios, it is very likely that we will hit the 1.5 degrees. And if the current emission scenarios continue, which will then result in a 3 emission scenario, 4 emission scenario, we're looking at way more than 2 degrees. So Paris, to have any effect, we need to somehow hold this temperature well below 2 degrees. Even 2 degrees is deadly for the planet. So I had to say this without giving this backdrop. I thought it wouldn't be right for me to talk about some of the national interventions that we are looking at in terms of climate action. Lastly, I just want to mention a last input from the AR6, that we are pretty certain that the frequency of extreme events, droughts, heat waves, cold waves, all of this flash floods will all increase in the next year. For example, if a decade in the pre-industrial era, if there was a chance for a heat wave to happen once, right now with a 1 degree increase in temperature, we're looking at 2.8 times more frequency and intensity of the same heat wave occurrence. That is right now. So climate change is here. But despite all of this climate scientific consensus that the world has, it is highly unfortunate. There cannot be I can't think of a word enough to explain how unfortunate it is for the globe that we have global leaders who are contradicting this scientific fact, who are questioning for political, financial mandates, for whatever mandates, who are questioning the scientific credibility of the impacts that we're talking about. Now talk about Kerala. In the last 50 years, did the people of Kerala live in fear of each monsoon? Kerala is the onset of southwest monsoon. We had we did not fear the monsoons, but in the last decade, we know each monsoon. For example, my mother stays in Kottayam, which is not even the lowlands, and she every year prepares for the monsoons. Now she gets everything to the first floor because she doesn't know when the water is going to fill up. So if this is not extreme, I don't know what is. Coming back to what the globe is, or how the globe is treating this problem, we have global leaders now contradicting. So this is, in the 21st century, I think environment and climate change is the most debated and the most contradicted term. We have people outright refusing, or even if they have accepted it, then questioning the impacts. It's highly questioning the very reality of the science behind it. So in this context, for any agreement for a UNFCCC to work out, which is the globe is now questioning its very foundations, to work out, we have to understand that this is a very transnational problem. We have to look at what has been happening in the last 200 years. And we know that the global north, the developed nations have done their bit. So the AR6 says that if you look at the total carbon budget of the last 300 years, 4/5 of that budget is already eaten up. Not by the south, but the north. So it leaves a very little space for those of us who are still in our trajectory to develop. We cannot overlook the needs of our people. Like Sir said, we are looking at ways to improve the human lives of our citizens, and India is very clear that our initiatives will be rooted in climate, the climate action or the climate sensitivity behind each and every one of our initiatives are very clear. For example, we are very keen on improving the economic output from our oceans. So we are looking at a blue economy policy to increase our GDP growth from ocean. And one of the mandates for my ministry was to look at the energy potential of the entire coastal belt. So we've looked at the entire EEZ, the exclusive economic zone of the 7,600 kilometers of the coastline, and the Indian National Center for Ocean and Information Services, which is mandated for oceanographic data in the country and in the entire Southeast Asia. They have come out with an atlas, an energy atlas, where they have differentiated, demarked hotspots of energy, be it meteorological energy from the oceans or hydrological. The hydrological would be sun and wind, and the meteorological energy sources would be waves, the tides, the currents, the ocean thermal gradient, the salinity gradient. We are also developing technologies to extract the energy quotient from the salinity gradient and the OTEC plants. But what I'm trying to say is that we are very clear on our climate commitments. The scientific backing is there. Technologically, we are, in terms of energy production, we have met halfway our goal to 2030. 500 gigawatts. Already we're looking at 50% of our energy production from renewables. And that is if you consider the nuclear power as well. So being a leader for the global north, we are very clear on our commitments, but are every single country equally committed? We have global powers pulling back on climate commitments. And what does this mean for the whole world? It means that countries who have done their bit to cause the problem, now they will have a precedence to pull back on their climate responsibilities. There cannot be a bigger catastrophe. Nobody can pull back on your responsibility. Everyone, because, as I said, the vulnerabilities are very different. The poor, the old, the smaller countries, the island nations, the countries with a larger coastal belt, agrarian economies like India, Kerala, for example, is going to be massively hit. The variation in extremes that I spoke about, and so because we are aware of it, India, pioneered by my ministry, we're trying to enhance our climate prediction potential. Our heat, our extreme event predictions. We are putting massive funding into expanding our atmospheric observations, satellite observations, improving our data assimilation technologies into the models to take care of our modeling capabilities. So we are right there, but we need every single country, whether a signatory or not, to be right there. No one can pull back on their responsibility on this problem. And I'm sure Lizzie will talk about how children are most worried. When I mentioned my son, the first thing that my son, I think when he started school, the first thing he was encouraged to draw by his school was how there's no planet B. So children are very much aware. I also want to conclude by mentioning two people that I recently wrote about in a book by Sri K.J. Alphonse. He talks about 52 ideas for human development. So in the book, and I've authored the chapter on climate change where I've mentioned two people whom I find very, very humane in the context of climate change. Mr. Payang from Assam and Mr. Nair from the Gulf of Kutch, two people who have built entire forest. Mr. Nair has built a forest in a desert. And Payang, when he saw the massive land use change from of the floodplain, he built forests. We're talking about acres and acres of land. So the idea of the point was that while I've mentioned the responsibility of countries, states, and scientists, all of us, I do not want to undermine the capacity that we have at individual levels to make a difference. Money and finance cannot be the basis with which we look at the problem. Recently, I want to mention that 2024 was the warmest year the planet has faced in the last centurial time period. We were looking at 1.5 degrees increase from pre-industrial eras this very year. So the UN Secretary General said in one of his talks, and I find this very interesting, we are pivoting down into a climate catastrophe, and we still haven't taken our foot off the accelerator. So as students, as the future, I want you to read up more on the issue and understand this has to be, there cannot be a future if you do not handle this issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Shiekha. We cannot thank you enough for highlighting this point that climate change is indeed a global problem, but then it has varying risks and unfair risks on different parts of the world. Thank you for that. Our next plenary speaker is sitting right at the center of the stage. She is one of the youngest environmental activists of the world, and India is extremely proud about her. She was born on Gandhi Jayanti Day in 2011 in Manipur. And guess when she started her climate action and being a climate activist? Yeah? That's right. She was all of 6 years old when she started work on this, on climate action. So she indeed represents the generation that Dr. Shiekha was talking about. Extremely proud to host here at Jain University the founder of the child movement, Kumari Licypriya Kangujam. Hearty welcome, Lissy.
Yeah. So am I audible? Yes? Krimjari Namaskaram. Is Namaskaram the way you greet it here in Kerala? Is it? Yeah, so my name is Licypriya Kangujam. I am 13 years old Indian climate activist and the founder of the child movement, or Bachpan Andolan in Hindi. I'm also the special envoy for the president of Timor-Leste, and I'm happy to share with you all that I'm the youngest diplomat in the history of the world to be officially working in a government. You see, I was born in Manipur, which is full of lush green mountains and alluring atmosphere, with full of rich biodiversity. But now, most of those rich biodiversity hotspots have become climate hotspots now. And children are out of school to fetch water from a very long distance in my own village. Any which ways, I grew up in Bhubaneswar, Odisha for my schooling reasons. My life was hit by Cyclone Titli in 2018 and Cyclone Fani in 2019. And during those two cyclones, as a young child, I saw in front of my very own two eyes how people were suffering, how children were suffering, how innocent people lost their lives, how they lost their homes, how children lost their parents. I saw all the devastation. I couldn't sleep, I couldn't even take my food, I couldn't even drink water. I moved to Delhi in 2019 later. And then again, I faced the intense heat waves and the high air pollution level in Delhi. So all such environmental issues that I faced at such a young age, it turned me into a child climate activist. You see, in July 2018, I got invited by the United Nations Disaster Conference when I was at the age of 6 years old. And it was a life-changing event. I met many world leaders, policymakers, experts, etc. And then after returning back in July 2018, I started my own organization called Child Movement that I've mentioned before in my introduction. Or you can call it as Bachpan Andolan in Hindi. You see, Child Movement is a children movement for climate justice. It's a children movement, or like you can say, it's a people movement to call out our world leaders to take immediate climate action. It does a lot of various initiatives such as raising awareness, doing massive tree plantation, cleanliness drives, etc., etc. We also do massive protest, climate strikes if the leaders don't listen to our voice. Because that's the last option that we have, to be honest, as a climate activist. I have 5 main demands to the leaders and the government to change the system. First is to pass a climate change law as soon as possible in the parliament. If the government passes a climate change law, then it would help us to control the carbon emissions and the greenhouse gases. Second is to include climate education as a mandatory subject in each and every education curriculum. Why? Because it would help us fight the climate crisis from a very young age, from the grassroots level. And because there will be no climate solution without climate education. Third is for each and every student in India, children in India, to plant minimum 10 trees every year. In India, there are 350 million students. If 350 million students plant minimum 10 trees every year, then we would plant around 3.5 billion trees. So trust me, India will be green in after 5 to 10 years if all the students plant minimum 10 trees every year. So should we start planting trees? Yes? I can't hear you. Yes, that's the spirit. And my 4th main demand is for the government to work together to manage a just transition away from coal, oil, and gas, the top causes of today's global climate crisis. My 5th main demand is for the rich nations to pay for the loss and damage fund, or we can call it as the climate finance. Because you see, today's global climate crisis is caused by the rich nations, and we are just the victims of it. We deserve climate justice now. And if the rich nations, if the developed nations are responsible for it, they must take the responsibility and give us the money now. Give us the loss and damage funds now. Because there will be no climate justice without the climate finance. And we deserve climate justice now. Global South deserves climate justice now. You see, climate change problem is not only for me or for you or for someone else. You see, climate change problem is for every single person living in this world. Each and every child living in this country, living in this world, are already the victims of today's global climate crisis. You see, millions of children like me are losing their lives, losing their parents and their homes due to climate disasters. And sacrificing the lives of these millions of innocent children for the failures of our leaders is unacceptable at any cost. My generation is already the victims of today's global climate crisis. And I don't want my future generations to face the same consequences again because of the inaction and empty false promises. Many people call out to children, to many young activists like me, that, hey, you're too young to get involved in such activism. Go to school, do your homework, do your exams, blah, blah, blah. But what I always say to them is that if you had taken even a bit of action or have done something for the environment or for us, the children, then would I have been, coming out on streets, protesting, raising my voice, or even be speaking here? No. I would have enjoyed my beautiful childhood life. But now what done is done. I always say that age doesn't matter to make a difference. I'm big or small, it doesn't matter. And I'm a girl child who strongly believes that every child can lead the change, isn't it? All of the small actions that you can take can make a huge difference. What I always say is that all our little things can make a huge difference. And age doesn't matter for that. I have a good news for everyone that Delhi University makes compulsory for every student there to plant minimum one tree to pass their final examinations. And I hope Jain University could also implement that kind of rule. Yeah, because if you don't plant that one tree, that one plant sapling, then you won't pass your final examinations. So it's a great rule, planting trees while, passing your examinations as well. And I'm also happy to share with you all that, I received letters from the Rajasthan and Gujarat government that they are going to include climate education as a mandatory subject in their school education curriculum. So now from 0 to over 150,000 schools or 1.5 lakh schools are now studying climate education as a mandatory subject in their education curriculum. And now many other European countries, America has also started teaching climate education as a mandatory subject in their school education curriculum. As I said, there will be no climate solution without climate education. And to fight climate change, climate education is really important. The information, the awareness is like the climate knowledge is really important if we want to fight today's global climate crisis. And yeah, I once went to Taj Mahal. You guys must be knowing, right? One of the 7 wonders of the world, the great iconic monument. I went there, just like a normal person. And I was shocked. I must say. Why? Because this iconic monument, Taj Mahal, was surrounded by piles of garbage, plastic pollution. I was shocked. And what I did next was I took a poster. I wrote, "Behind the beauty of Taj Mahal is plastic pollution." I repeat, behind the beauty of Taj Mahal is plastic pollution. The picture gone viral in the social media. And within 24 hours, within the next day, all the plastic pollution around the Taj Mahal was cleaned. And also the authority was fined ₹1 lakh. I mean, they deserved it, of course. So yeah, they have to do for what they're responsible for. And also, I protested in front of the Rashtrapati Bhavan, or we may call it the President House of India, on 15th of October 2020. Why? because of the air pollution. We, the children, are suffering it in the front lines, in the very own front lines, because we go to school every single day and we can't even breathe inside our homes. We have to wear masks. It's affecting our health. We can't survive. So I protested for that, to make a new law to curb the Delhi's high air pollution level. On 18th of October 2020, I was detained by the Delhi police because, full of strict laws and regulations, and it's not allowed to protest. And finally, after some time, on 20th of October 2020, the President of India signed an ordinance to curb the Delhi's high air pollution level. And this achievement is not only done by me, but by a lot of other climate activists as well. I also have an initiative called Plastic Money Shop. Plastic Money Shop. So what happens is in Plastic Money Shop is that people bring single-use plastic from their homes and can choose within these 3 options, which is 2 kg free rice, a stationery item, or a plant sapling. So it's kind of like a barter system, in exchange for the plastic, they can choose within these 3 options. And then after collecting all those single-use plastic waste, we can upcycle them, or you can say recycle them into school benches, desks, house roof sheets, road tiles, etc. So the mission of this project is to eliminate every single-use plastic from our planet. It also stops the single-use plastic waste from reaching our oceans, rivers, seas, landfills, etc. And while doing this initiative, it also teaches people about the global plastic pollution. It raises awareness within people. So if such kind of initiative is implemented in a large scale, maybe by Jain University or the local body or the government, then imagine the big impact, more big impact that it can have. So yeah, so I hope it can be implemented in a much more larger way. Yeah, and it's also supported, appreciated by a lot of people across the globe, across India, and also has been implemented in many states of India and across the globe. So what I would like to say is that I have a dream. I have a dream where there are no coal power plants and thermal power plants, and is replaced by clean renewable energies. I have a dream where there are more bicycles on roads instead of more fossil fuel vehicles. I have a dream where every child has the access to clean air to breathe, clean water to drink, and clean planet to live. And asking clean air to breathe, clean water to drink, and clean planet to live is all our basic rights. It is all our basic rights. A lot of people talk about freedom, but what is real freedom? Freedom is when you can protect your land and environment. Freedom is when you can protect your children's future, culture, and health. Freedom is when you can protect your land and environment. Freedom is when you can read and write. Freedom is when you're out of hunger. And freedom is when we're all together in this fight. Change starts from within. Change starts from yourself. If you can change yourself, then you can change your family. If you can change your family, then you can change your neighborhood. If you can change your neighborhood, then you can change your community. If you can change your community, then you can change your state. If you can change your state, then you can change your country. And if you can change your country, then you can change the whole world. The first step the first step to saving our planet is to change our behavior. So I request one of you, all of you present here today, who is listening to me, to take the immediate climate action. There are a lot of people who know about climate change, who are also getting a lot of more new knowledge, information about climate change, about today's global climate crisis. They have it all in their head. But what left is the action. What would be the point if you have all the knowledge in your head, but you don't take the climate action? It's like when you plant a tree, but you don't take care of it, and it dies. So what's the point of planting that plant sapling? So we all must love and respect our Mother Nature and take the immediate climate action now, because we don't have much time now. Otherwise, it would be too late. I will repeat what I have said before. My generation is already the victims of today's global climate crisis. And I don't want my future generations to face the same consequences again because of the inaction and empty false promises. Lastly, remember, there is no value of our expensive art, luxurious car, a beautiful home, or a lot of money on a dead planet. So I would like to end it here. Thank you. Jai Hind, Sanale Bak Manipur Ne Aifre. Thank you once again. Thank you.
What an evocative, heartfelt play. There's a TED speaker, Simon Sinek, who speaks about the why behind your actions or decisions. Here's a girl who knows exactly the why behind what she does, and she feels so strongly about it that everybody in this hall today is moved by your words. Thank you so much for that, Lissy. And I'd like to invite the next speaker by inviting your attention to one specific point that Lissy mentioned here, that clicking that picture of Taj Mahal with all the plastic around and posting it on her social media and creating that impact at an individual level, that's something all of us can do. So individual action is so very important, and also thank you for highlighting that point. On that note, I'd like to bring onto the podium our next speaker, who is the advisor in the Chancellor's Advisory Board, Jain University, a man who's extremely passionate about aerospace technology, finance, entrepreneurship, and education. He has also served Jain University earlier as the Dean and the Registrar. Proud to present to you Dr. Envoy Krishnan. Welcome, sir.
We have had some wonderful presentations so far. First of all, from Mr. Loknath Behra about the water metro. I'm sure it's a unique concept, and I don't think too many countries in the world have a water metro, and the connections between metro and water, and how by itself it can promote sustainable development. Then we had Shiekha ma'am presenting on Earth, climate change, and all the efforts that the government is doing to mitigate the effects of climate change. Then we had that Licypriya, really it was a very, very emotional and very, very poignant appeal to save the planet. I'm sure that all of us deserve it to Licypriya and to her generation. If we don't act now, then it'll be too late was the message. I think we should act now. So before, as I said, I was introduced as from the aerospace industry. Yes, I started life with the aerospace industry. Of course, we do a lot of flying, many of us. And it's an industry which contributes to the global footprint. Global carbon footprint, about 2.5% of the carbon footprint is contributed by the airline industry. But I'm not going to focus so much on the airline industry. After working in the aerospace industry for a long time, about 4 years I worked in a company which was into export of leather products. I was there as general manager in a company which was dealing with leather. And I must tell you that I was introduced to one of the most polluting industries in the, perhaps, at least in India. I don't know about the world. So what happened was we have a number of leather industries situated around 2 cities in Tamil Nadu. One is Vaniambadi and the other is Ambur. So the leather industry uses, a lot of chemicals for processing. I mean, obviously you have seen the, you pick up the skin of a cow and then you process it and then you have to bring it to the color that, all of us wear. It's either a black shoe or a brown shoe. But to do that, you need to put it through a number of processes and you use phenomenal amount of chemicals to bring about the transformation from a raw hide to the shoes that we wear. Now, the chemical effluents were being let out into the ground, and it was polluting the groundwater. People were putting up with it because, all of us were earning, many of them were working in the, in the leather companies, and then, they were earning their livelihood. So, obviously they were quite grateful to the companies which were providing them employment. But, we found that people were falling sick, they were being affected by tuberculosis, and they were no longer from groundwater, they were getting perhaps, contaminated water, and the color of the water was no longer, its natural color. Mostly we would get red water from the ground. So there came a stage when people said that, look, fine, I mean, we are all working and then we get some money out of working and then we run our families with this. But I think things, we do need clean water, perhaps more important than these industries. I mean, if it is not this industry, then some other industry will come and then maybe we can eke our livelihood, but we are losing our sources of water. So then in fact, the case went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court also, immediately ordered the shutdown of those companies, and then, a lot of attention was brought on that industry, and so there was a lot of, so everybody ran around, the government started running, everybody started running, and we started thinking about effluent treatment plants. So we also did. What happened was a number of companies would come together and also would set up a common effluent treatment plant. If you could not afford an effluent treatment plant of your own, a set of companies would come forward and then they would set up this common effluent treatment plant. So you will be amazed and shocked that so little attention was paid by industries, by companies, to the damage they were inflicting on the environment. So I would spend the next few minutes in just speaking about, the efforts of corporates to, so the realization is growing and the kind of awareness is growing among companies to act on climate change and also to contribute their little bit. So the awareness, first of all, took the form of, people started talking about what is called as triple bottom line. What is triple bottom line? They said that, a company should not exist only to make profits, but also should look at other aspects. So the triple bottom line consists of planet, profit, and people. So companies have a responsibility to the planet. Not only planet, they also have responsibility to people because they employ people, they serve society, their products are consumed by society, and so therefore they also need to look at people. They have to give back to planet because they are taking resources from the planet. I mean, they use water, they use, other sources of, they use the minerals. They use the minerals to transform them into products and to sell. So therefore, they have to give back to the planet. And of course, you need profits also. Profits help you to grow. Profits help you to sustain. Profits help you to expand. So you can reach more people when you make profits. So you had, so therefore you have a lot of companies. I mean, even Apple, for example, says that by 2035, they will be carbon neutral. So they have set a target for themselves. So many companies are coming forward to set targets for themselves on carbon neutrality and things like that. Now going forward, so a number of companies had adopted a triple bottom line. As I said, they were not only reporting profits, but also were reporting their efforts towards saving the planet and towards society. So then slowly this movement gave way to something called ESG. So companies were supposed to be responsible for ESG. That is, E stands for environment, S stands for society, and G for governance. So they said that, so therefore companies started looking at environment, society, societal and governance. In India, for example, the top 100 listed companies are required by SEBI to come out with what is called as a business responsibility report, a BRR. So as part of their environment, society and governance. So basically, this, Licypriya spoke a lot about the government and about how people have to be involved in protection of the environment and also to reduce the carbon footprints and things like that. So I also want to put forward that slowly, I mean, I'm very sorry that it has taken so many years for people to realize the importance of environment, but companies are also, not just in India, but across the world, are realizing the importance of protecting the environment and also creating a greener future, a better future for all of us. Of course, the United Nations has come out with its sustainable development goals. To me, it sounds, so much like what we have in our, in our culture. We talk about Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. So I think, the UN's 17 Sustainable Development Goals also reflects what ancient wisdom in India held, that, we need a world, we pray for the whole world to be a peaceful and a happy place. So the 17 goals also are very explicitly stated. I mean, if to be sustainable, yes, you need clean water, you need clean energy, you need access to clean air and so on, and then, eradication of poverty, zero hunger. So goals like that is what UN has also set up. I'm sure that, we have at least, if not anything, we have realized the importance of climate change. Slowly started working on it. I'm optimistic that, more and more will join this movement, and then we will have a cleaner and safer and more habitable India and a world. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Krishnan, for highlighting the importance of corporate businesses taking on the responsibility of climate action as well. And to the final plenary speaker on this stage, again, an advisor in the Chancellor's Advisory Board. He has been an expert in space policy and international space law. He has also served as the Director of Academics with Jain University earlier, Professor Sridhara Murthi. Welcome, sir.
At the outset, I am delighted to participate in this forum. We had some wonderful ideas relating to this very important theme. At the outset, I am also overwhelmed with the level of participation of students, particularly you look at the activity, the volunteers so wonderfully supporting this conference. I think all of you deserve a good applause. So we owe our gratitude and appreciation to Pro Vice Chancellor Dr. Lata ma'am and also Dr. Madhukumar and whole host of eminent faculty of this institution. I can see a very bright future for this institution where, within a short time, it was able to establish this level of progress. I'm sure that all of you will enjoy the eminence of this institution to take your careers further. Having said that, when it comes to the theme of creating a greener planet through unified approach. When we say unified approach, what do we mean? There is a conflict. The conflict between what? Between the development. For the development we need to use the resources. So we need speedier development, so we need to use more and more resources. So which means depletion of resources and sometimes impact on every development action has impact on the environment. So it's a balance between the conflict of development and sustainability. And also, there is another kind of conflict that we see, conflict between the nations, different nations. Some bigger economies, they are developing at a faster pace and depleting the resources in a very unsustainable way. And also, there are many developing countries which need to use the resources and the kind of restrictions that come in the way of development when they want to use the resources. This is another type of conflict that comes into the play. So this unification is the wonderful idea of balancing. We need development, at the same time we have to make the use of resources sustainable. So from millennia, the humanity faced this conflicting situation, and there have always been wisdom in use of resources in a sustainable way through practices, through our culture, and also developing technologies that are more friendly to the environment and so on. I have more than 3.5 decades spent in an organization which developed technologies for the monitoring and creating knowledge as to how we can use your resources very optimum way. So I was working with the Space Research Organization. So in this context, the question arises, when we have this dire need, do we have the necessary technology? Definitely we can say, we can proudly say, as India, we have developed technologies to understand various aspects relating to our environment and earth system. And many of these technologies have also been used. So by using the Earth observation satellite systems, we have the capability to monitor. Over decades, today, India, we can proudly say that India is one of the leading countries which have developed very state-of-art remote sensing satellite system in the world. Not only we have been using these systems for various aspects of monitoring and generating information about our resources, use of resources, and for planning and so on. But also we are sharing this expertise with other countries of the world. So we have capabilities. To give you an idea, from a height of even 600 kilometers, today we have capability to see about 1 foot on ground, 1 foot dimension on the ground, which means if you have to detect, you have to understand, you need, of course, even, probably you can see, the objects of sizes of 1 meter, 1.5 meter, and so on. But this capability is a very unique capability. Not only that, we can see up to this level, we have developed more than 100 sensors which use different parts of the electromagnetic spectrum to understand various aspects for monitoring forests, how the vegetation is changing, whether we can derive information to predict onset of droughts. And as Dr. Shiekha ma'am mentioned, generating information for extreme weather events like monitoring cyclones, cyclone movements, landfalls, and so on and so forth as accurately as possible. And even, looking at the pollution aspects, biodiversity aspects, and a host of other things which contribute to our understanding of the climate change, which is extremely complex phenomena to understand. So fairly, if we look at it, we have the technology. And we can also say that we have developed methods of using this technology. India is one of the leaders in the applications of modern technologies to understand many of these scientific aspects. Then, are we able to use the technology to the extent that we know we can solve all problems? It is here that although many technologies are available, we also need something else. What is this something else? It is the human coordination, and the way we use the technology also has to be looked at. Basically, here we should look at the interaction between our social systems and technical systems. If we are able to bring the democratization of the information, give the power of information among all the people, probably, this can bring about much more effective use of our technology. One simple example which Licypriya has very nicely put across to us is just by sharing the information, creating the awareness through social media, we can see the transformation. So whatever capability we have generated through the development of technology, if we are able to democratize the information, put it in the hands of each and every one, I think we can see a greater transformation in the use of the technology. So what does it all hold for your future? That is another important question. How, we can protect this planet against various forces that are constantly, invading us. So it is here that, we need both activism and continuous understanding of technology, because technology is of nature that exponentially it keeps on expanding. Today, we see the impact of AI and many such disruptive technologies, but we can also use this power for improving. For example, even the models which Dr. Shiekha ma'am has spoken about relating to understanding of the climate, they are extremely complex. The longer time consistent observations we have and use technologies like AI, we can even generate better and better information. And that is where I think you can all play a role. The government today has also given opportunity for many of the private sector industries, the new enterprises, startups, to take part in this revolution of creating better knowledge and using that knowledge for our benefit. I think those opportunities are something which you should look forward to change the kind of vulnerabilities we have, overcome the threats we have for the protection of the planet. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Murthi, for underscoring the possibilities of technology in taking climate action for a sustainable future for our planet. And with that, we've come to the end of the speeches of our plenary speakers. If we have any burning questions on the floor, we can take one of them. We are already out of time, but we do understand that this is a stellar array of speakers and you might have a question. So please do rise up and raise your hand if you have a question, and a microphone will come to you. Anybody who has a question? Yes, right here.
It was a very good session, and my question is to Ms. Licypriya. I was very curious after hearing your talk to understand how your parents reacted to this decision of yours. You're 13, you're out there on streets for our planet, which is very, very impressive. How did your parents react to this?
Well, you see, when I first started my activism, at such a very young age, my parents, especially my mother, didn't support me at all. It was because, as a mother, she's worried about a child's future, my future, my education, and a lot more things like that. But I promised my mom, I promised my parents that I would handle both my activism and education equally, because they're both equally important to me. And I did keep up with that promise. Well, you see, when I started my activism, I was in Odisha only, at the age of 6 years old. And then I started protesting every week in front of the Parliament House of India, so that I could raise my voice, so that I could call out the government of India to take the immediate climate action now. And I had to travel every week, from Odisha to New Delhi. So my parents couldn't afford the expenses. So we later had to shift to Delhi only. And that was one of the saddest moment of my life. Because I miss my teachers, I miss my school. My whole childhood life was based in Odisha only, because I practically grew up there. So my parents played a huge role in this. Even in 2019, when I was at the age of, I think, 9 years old, I got invited to the United Nations Climate Conference in Madrid, Spain, COP25, also known as COP25. What happened was, it was a really important event, conference, I must say, to raise my voice. Everything was ready, all the documents, all the papers were ready, except for the flight ticket and hotel booking. Because you see, it's really expensive. And how do you expect a child to afford the expenses for that? But there was this, and I had to, and only one day before, like, I gave up on my decision, that fine, I will give up on the invitation that I got from the UN Climate Conference in 2019. Because I couldn't afford the expenses. But there was this one person who said, I will send my child to the United Nations Climate Conference in Madrid, Spain. I will send her. And that person is my mom. She broke her gold chain and sent me to the UN. From that moment, since ever I spoke in the United Nations Climate Conference in Madrid, Spain, held in 2019, from that point onwards, the world started knowing me. The world started recognizing me. That was my start point. That's where people started knowing me, about the work I did. So yeah, I would like to really thank my mom. Without her, without my parents, I wouldn't be what I am today.
Are you here? Licypriya's mom, is she here in the hall? Ma'am, can you just rise up for all our students to say? Thank you.
Yeah, hats off to you and hats off to your parents too. We're really blessed to have you, and you're blessed to have them as well.
From initially being apprehensive about her child's future to she convincing her that it's not just her future that matters, all children's future matters. Thank you for listening to her. Do we have one more question, or we're running out of time? Okay, just one last question there.
I'll make it quick, I promise. My question is to Dr. Shiekha and maybe Loknath sir as well. The IPCC AR6, the assessment report came out sometime in March of 2023. I think it finished sometime in the March of 2023. We are in 2025 currently. We knew then the doomsday scenario we are in, and we've still been talking about advocacy. We've still been talking about behavioral change in terms of fighting climate change and the effects that climate change is bringing to us, while we are seeing disasters and natural disasters happening to us every day, especially in Southeast Asia, India, and the Bangladesh belt. Like Licypriya said, Cyclone Fani and the many cyclones that have affected us. Isn't it time for us to now have proper policy, sometimes dictatorial by nature, to address climate change, especially in a country like India, which has so many more people and so many more minds to convert?
Thank you for the question. Policy can never be dictatorial, and I totally agree. We have been negotiating for decades. It's not just since the AR6. The scientific community has been very clear where we're going, at least for the last 20 odd years. I'd like to respond to that question, quoting two contradictions that I find very interesting, which is connected, everything I think today is connected to climate change, but this is interesting, at least to me. And since young minds are sitting, I'd like to address this issue. So you see, the 2024 Earth Day in April, you might already know that the topic this year was, the theme was the planet versus plastic. Millions of dollars were invested globally on this theme, and we've all, including me, we stood up on stages saying that please don't use plastic. But plastic is not a product of demand, at least single-use plastic. It is a product, the economic minds here would agree, it is a product of supply. For example, I go to the market, I do not have a thela with me, I will accept the single-use plastic and buy my mangoes or whatever. You supply it, people will accept it. It is that is the nature of that product. Now, how is this linked to climate change? We are transitioning, right? The globe is transitioning to EV. Now, EV has its own inherent issues. So the petrochemical industries has to survive. We are looking at a scenario, and the contradiction is here. On one hand, we'll spend millions advocating stop plastic. On the other, there are countries, global powers and companies invested on doubling and tripling their plastic production. I will not go into the nitty-gritties of whether it's single-use or specialized or reducible, biodegradable. But that is one contradiction. Second being, since there are youngsters here, how many of you are all interested in cryptocurrency? That is the talk of the last, I don't know, 5 years? And we have big people advocating it. China recently banned it. I didn't know about this. My husband was the one who put it across. I was asking him, what do I talk about? And then he said, maybe it might be interesting to mention this. So China banned it. And then I was surprised. I mean, the financial implication behind the ban can be there. But the climate implication is huge. So we know somebody who was doing crypto mining in Bangalore. A lot of people, I think, are invested into it. The heat generated out of that activity is immense. There is no scientific study on it. China had people in the rural segment massively going back into coal mining to fund their energy requirements for crypto mining. So I'm just trying to put across contradictions inherent in our daily lives. And everything has a way of ending in climate change. So I think it is not just countries. See, India is very clear. We are very clear on our climate commitments. But like I said, this is not a national problem. I think Sir would agree with it. It is a transnational issue. Every single country, a signatory, if you are, even if you are not, like I said, you cannot backtrack on it. And India we have our development requirements as well, right? We're looking at the immense number of people that have to cross the threshold of economic sustenance, right? So this is a highly complex issue, but we alone cannot. Like I said, we have come way ahead in our commitments. We have, in fact, even met halfway of our energy commitments. So, it has to be a very global, concentrated effort. And law, 1992, there is a very clear legal treaty. Every country who is signatory there has very clear legal pathways to follow. We have not been able to come to a consensus on how to reach them because of political and financial implications. Thank you. I hope that answers the question, sir.
No, I just actually took a cue from what Licypriya said. Look, she said that the there should be a law on climate change. Yes, this has been actually thought of for a very long time. What is happening right now is that in each piece of legislation relating to development, etc., they actually have some kind of enabling clause. There is not a comprehensive legislation available in our country. So, which is, say for example, European Union has come out to suppose a legislation on artificial intelligence. We are yet to do it. But sometimes the late starters are gainers also. They take a lot of things into account. But that is a hope we must actually say. One is that what she said, that it is not a very easy thing to do when you live with cooperation with other countries, etc. There are so many bilateral, multilateral country treaties. I'll tell you, Article 253 of the Indian Constitution says that in the event we sign a covenant or a convention internationally, we have to make an enabling legislation. But we have, like many other countries, even developed countries, have actually not legislated. So what the question is that it will come, but it will come not very quickly. There are so many things that are, as she said, relating to the contradictions. When you go for a policy or a legislation, there should not be any contradiction. So that is a very difficult job. Therefore, what happens is that most of you can actually think, even there is a portal, you can actually load your actually things, suggestions, etc. Let it be lower, truly democratic, and so that more ideas can actually bring more actually refiner legislations. Once the legislation is there, the rules have to be framed. These are in our country called the policies. Otherwise, it will not, nobody policy is there and there is no backup legislation, nobody will listen to that. This is what it is, happens here. Am I clear?
Yeah, and also, I would also like to add something to it. So you see, last year, COP28 was held in Dubai, United Nations Climate Conference. And it was a complete failure. It's just one of the examples that I'm trying to say. It was a complete failure. What we, the climate activists, were talking about, the leaders were doing the complete whole opposite of it. So, and more fossil fuel lobbyists were there than the other climate activists or the environmentalists or other people or indigenous people, etc. So on the last day of COP28, it's held for 2 weeks, this United Nations Climate Conference. I was in a high-level plenary session. And while I was there, while hearing those, high-level leaders, their speeches, I was really mad, frustrated at what they were talking about, because it was like they were saying something, but something else was happening on the other hand. And what I did was I barged in, I disrupted the high-level plenary session, saying that, what I said before, one of my main demands is to end the era of fossil fuels, right? To make a complete, just transition from fossil fuels to clean, renewable energies. And then, I barged in and I disrupted the high-level plenary session in COP28. And what happened next was, the event was extended for 2 more days. And finally, the nations who were the part of the United Nations came to an agreement to make a just transition away from the fossil fuels, to end the era of fossil fuel by the year of 2060 and to double the clean renewable energies by the year of 2030. So that's the agreement that they came into, like the nations who were the part of United Nations. And what happened was that, 2025 has came, New Year has came, but still, even though the agreement was made, there is still an increase of the use of fossil fuels. So that's the example, like, people come to the agreement, like laws and everything, like the air pollution law. But there has still been no difference. We can't still breathe properly in Delhi. So what I would like to say is that we, the young people, students, must hold the lawmakers accountable for their political decisions. As a climate activist, I raise my voice. I raise the awareness. I shout out if they don't listen to our voice, if they don't listen to my voice. That's my part. Now, the part left is for the leaders is for the policymakers, for the real action, for the permanent solutions that we want. So we're still seeking for it. I can still see a hope. I still have a hope that as a child, that our planet can still be saved. We can still fight the global climate crisis. I can still, I still feel that hope, inside me. So as a child, as a climate activist, I'm trying my best, to make those changes, those permanent solutions happen for real. So what I always say is that nothing is impossible, if we try our best, all the achievements that I've mentioned before, if we try our best, then everything will be possible. Change is possible, nothing is impossible. And I will fight until my last breath, until I achieve my goal. So that's what I just want to say from my side.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lissy, for that infectious spirit that you're injecting into all of us. Thank you once again, and thank you, gentlemen, for that question. Unfortunately, we have to wrap up here in demand of time. And I'd like to bring on stage Dr. Madhu Kumar, Joint Controller of Examinations with Jain University, and Dr. R. Sati Kumar, Deputy Dean of Student Affairs, Jain University, to present a token of our appreciation to these 5 stellar people on stage. I think we have a consensus that this is an extremely complicated issue. Just the geopolitical aspect of it, which they were touching upon, makes it so complicated. And yet, individual action is so much possible. Thank you for that call to action from everyone on stage. And we are presenting a memento to all our speakers on stage, starting with Sri Loknath Behra. Dr. Shiekha Elizabeth John. Kumari Licypriya Kangujam. Yes. Dr. Envoy Krishnan. And Professor Sridhara Murthi. May I request all of you to step up for a group photograph together after the mementos are presented. I request all of you to take the center stage, step up for a group photograph. Thank you for that. That's the youngest speaker at the Summit of Future 2024 at the center. So, yes, louder round of applause. Thank you.